Welcome to another episode of The Marketer's Edge, a series designed to share senior level marketing perspective about marketer challenges, opportunities, and agency relationships. Our goal is to help marketers and agencies learn from other marketers across different industries. Today we're talking with Cassie Donnelly, the Senior Brand Manager for OLFA, a pioneer in cutting tools since 1956. The North American operations are based out of Oakville, Ontario, and Cassie's located outside of the Chicagoland area, and wanted to just say thanks for joining us today, Cassie. How have you been?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I've got a small handful of questions for you, but before we do that, can you tell me a little bit about OLFA, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, and what you do for them as a senior brand manager? I just like our audience to know what kind of organization it is and what you do to support them.
Absolutely. So OLFA itself is a corporation based in Japan. They're the manufacturing arm and they distribute worldwide. OLFA North America, who I work for, is the North American branch. We're responsible for sales and marketing in the United States and Canada. So we have an office in
Okay,
Canada, and then pretty much the rest of the team works remote. But we find that that's pretty cool. Me personally, I oversee the pro trade and safety side of the business. So it's going to include our Snap utility knives, specialty knives, safety tools, and then additionally we provide insight, back to OLFA Japan for the
okay.
what's coming in our market. So the things that they should look for new product development.
Got it, got it. So you support Japan by providing them with insights in terms of what's happening in the North American marketplace.
Correct. So we're going to look for,
Okay.
sometimes we see trends that they don't use in their market. For instance, we see ceramic in the North American market where the European and the Asian markets don't see ceramic in the safety industry as much as, but it's probably
Got it.
coming towards them. Most things tend to start more here and then work their way over there.
Got it. Interesting. Okay. Well, you've spent a good number of years working in the industrial manufacturing industry, and I kind of use that broadly, but I'm just curious, what do you like about it, and what has kept you in it as long as you've been in it?
Good question. Mainly, to me, manufacturing is just very interesting. There's so many, facets of it, from the marketing side of it to being on the production floor and actually seeing the product come to life. So in college, I worked in, fast food, and yes, you saw the product, but it wasn't as tangible as going to a manufacturing company and see the raw goods come in and the plastic being molded and the steel being, created into different things. So it's just very interesting to me. That you see all those pieces of it, and it gives you a better perspective on how to build those stories about what's important about that product.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. That's great. And I'm curious, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges that you've faced from a marketing standpoint, either at OLFA or in past jobs, and how have you worked to overcome them?
I think the biggest thing for me is finding my own voice and my own perspective. Any job you walk into, you're walking into somebody else's legacy, and whether that was working, not
Okay.
working, whatever. It's how do you take that their vision and combine it with your vision, and sometimes it's just a little tilt of the map, sometimes it's a big, we're going to change this completely, and really being able to find my voice and my confidence in that. And then I think the other thing is just keeping everything fresh. Something with OLFA that, we have a product line that's been around since 1956. It's a, basic utility knife. It's a snap knife. Everybody knows what it is, but so how do you keep telling those stories in different ways and engaging new people and making, old things new, and then keeping the new things in the forefront too. So I think those two things are probably the biggest challenge.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting challenge, and I'm sure a lot of manufacturing companies deal with that. And I'm sure there isn't one answer to this question, but like, how do you do that? How do you keep it fresh, the messaging, the product fresh?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. For us, it's just, going back and how do you tell those stories different ways? So we just look at different approaches. I think as how we market changes, as the mediums change. So, you think back as I was younger, everything was in print, and then it was television, and now it's a lot of social media. So it's, how do people consume? Are they consuming short little bursts of your information? Are they consuming long, presentations of your information? So I think that allows you some opportunities to change things right there. And then, can you do it just different? We have illustrations, we have photos, we have videos, we have stop motion videos now. So there's a lot of content that you can create out of the same basic puzzle pieces.
Right, right. Yeah, that's cool. That's a great way to look at it. Curious, how difficult is it to get what I assume is probably a very sales-driven organization like OLFA, or maybe your previous employer Ideal Industries, to appreciate and see the value in marketing? You mentioned, finding your voice. How do you get an organization that's very heavy on the sales side to see the real value in marketing?
It can definitely be tough. A lot of it depends on who's in charge. What is their background? Do they have some marketing background so they kind of understand it at a basics? Are they very, sales orientated? And then and they're trying to tie everything back to a sales dollar. But it all goes back to, we got to step back and believe in what you're doing. So I think that's the biggest thing. If you bring passion to it, that's going to help sell anything. And it's a sales job to them. So we just have to sell our product differently than they would sell their product. But I think at the end of it, it's, believe in what you're doing, stay the course, and continue to educate them and show them why this is the way we should do things. And it's hard to we can't tie everything back to sales dollars. We know that in marketing, we try our best. But I think you just really have to stay the course and just keep pushing what you think is the right path. And, I always kind of fall back on, you hired us for a reason. That you think that we are the best person for this job. So believe in what we're telling you when we say these tactics are what we need to do.
Yeah. Do you guys work with a direct sales force, or do you work through brokers and distributors, or both?
We have a little bit of everything. So we have some direct salespeople that manage the business. Then we do utilize some sales rep agencies, just because, our direct guys can't be everywhere. We go through distribution then. So for the most part, we sell through distribution, and we market. It's kind of a hybrid. So, for the majority of it, we're marketing to the end user who's going to ultimately use the product. But yet we do have to do some marketing to the distributor side to say why you should have this product in your store.
Got it. Okay, so you're trying to market to the distributor to convince them to carry product, but it sounds like most of your marketing is direct to the end user, to try and get them to ask for the product and buy the product. Okay.
Right. Yeah, we're trying to pull through the sales.
Right. Has marketing always operated that way at OLFA, or is that a relatively new phenomena for them?
In all the time that I've been involved with them, this is how they've done it. I think, again, going back to that, as people ebb and flow, with who's in charge, that probably changes some, and some directions and tactics change a little bit. But, like even when I was at Ideal, it was the same thing. It's a very business to business company. They sell to distributors, but yet you still have to market to that end user, the guy that's going to use it, because they have to want it to go in and buy it from your distributor.
Right, exactly. So what advice would you give a marketer that's worked in consumer marketing all his or her life, entering into the B2B world for the first time?
I think, to me, marketing is marketing. Who your customer is. So I think it's knowing your customer. I think at the end of the day, that's probably the key is, for me, I have a lot of different customers. Sometimes I'm marketing to the end user. Sometimes I'm marketing to distributor. Sometimes I'm marketing to my own sales force, and you're trying to sell them on, so it's who's your customer and how are they going to consume the information you're giving them. So obviously to, the customer, it's a little bit more emotional, or the end user customer, it's a little bit more emotional. Why is this knife going to solve my problems? Why is this wire connector going to do what, whatever. if it's the business or the distributor, it's, how is this going to either save me money or make me money? And, sales, it's how is all this marketing stuff going to help me do my job and make my sales easier? So I think it's just understanding what it is you're selling and who you're selling to, and then just changing
Right.
that story to the appropriate audience.
Okay, yeah, that makes great sense. And I took a look at Ideal Industries, and it looked like it was more of a hardcore B2B industrial firm. Were the things that you learned from that experience that you've applied to your work at Olaf?
A little bit. Again, it's you. There's a little bit of marketing to everybody in that. So, even though Ideal was more business to business, they sell directly to distributors. Distributors are, typically selling to contractors. So it is kind of a more B2B. But at the end of the day, it's an individual electrician installing wire connectors, and they're very passionate about. It's kind of like a Coke and Pepsi type of thing. I want this wire connector, I want that wire connector, and they don't really switch very often. So it's
Right.
knowing, again, creating that emotion at that end user to say when they come in, this is why I want this, and this is why I rely on it, and giving them that confidence that this product's going to deliver on the promises that they made. And then again, backing it up to the distributor, or even the contractor level. Maybe it's, okay, I'm the contractor boss, and I don't use the product, but I'm buying it. Well, A, it's going to make my employees happy. B, it's going to save me money. It might reduce callbacks. It might reduce my cost because of I need less of them because they don't break as often. I mean, it just what's the story and the benefit that you're trying to sell, and then how to relay it to the right person in the right type of story.
Right, yeah, and using the right media platform to get to them, I would imagine as well is probably important.
Right, so if we're marketing to the end user, we're probably going to be in either magazines or maybe digital places that they like. It could be social media now is very big for all that. At the distributor level, it's going to be more trade publications or sites that they're looking at. Yeah, so it just depends on what's the right platform to get to the person, and then how do you get there.
Right. Is there an overriding positioning that you've created for Olaf? And I'm just curious, like, how important positioning is in the blade manufacturing space.
I think positioning is important in any space. You have to figure out where you fit into the matrix. I mean, especially as more
Right.
and more brands come into any given space. So for blades, we want to
Right.
be, we know we're a higher end brand, we want to be at that higher end position, but then we want to we deliver on the promises we make. So to us, we say we're the sharpest blades, longest lasting. So we do testing to verify that. We talk to our consumers, what is important to them. So how do you validate that that's where you should be in the market? Is that what they're looking for? Is that what's important to them? And then that's going to help your positioning as well.
Got it. Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you determine the best, most differentiated positioning for OLFA, Olaf? It's OLFA, right? Yeah,
OLFA.
sorry.
Yep, OLFA.
Yeah, yeah,
We
sorry.
get that a lot.
Yeah, sorry. Yep. Yeah. How do you determine sort of the best, most differentiated positioning? You mentioned talking to consumers. Are there other approaches you take when trying to sort of work your way through stuff like that?
We do a lot of research in various platforms. So we have an all-star team that are a group of social media people that aren't necessarily, I mean, yeah, they're influencers, but they're not influencers as how a lot of people think of it. They're people that are very passionate about their craft, and they like to share their knowledge. So they're very knowledgeable about how to do a project and give tips and tricks. So we rely on them as kind of our
Okay.
first pass of, does this make sense? Does this resonate with you? Whether it's new product, whether it's advertising. Then we like to, again, get touch base with our actual end users and or distributors. So trade shows, doing research through different research companies and paying for focus groups, and but surveying our own people a couple, our email lists a couple times a year, just to say, like, what are people looking for? Are we hitting the right notes? Like, does this resonate with you? So I think it's just always making sure that you're kind of touching base, that not getting on a path and then just sticking straight to it because that's the path. You have to be a little bit
Right.
flexible to be able to say, does this work? Does this not work? And then, again, a lot of it goes back to, trusting your gut.
Yeah, right. I'm sure. I'm sure. Especially if you've played in the space, as long as you have, you probably see patterns of similar things that work and don't work, and I
Right.
would imagine you'd be able to draw on that experience to help you make decisions.
Exactly.
So, so I'm curious, the craft portion of your business, is that a relatively new sort of sector that you're playing in?
Not really. The craft side's been a solid part of the OLFA business since around the early 70s. OLFA actually invented the rotary
Okay.
cutter. So they've had a lot of inventions during their time. They invented the snap-off knife, which became kind of de facto for the industry as far as the style of the blade, the way the blade breaks. Then they invented the
Okay.
rotary cutter, which again has been copied by many people. So it's interesting because again, you got to know your audience and know what your core is. So we have, an overall alpha brand that we try to keep certain things consistent from side to side, but then the way they go to market on the craft side is definitely different because everything's a little bit softer. It's a little bit more project based, because the audience is much
Right.
different. That our audience the pro side tends to skew definitely more male. So we're going after that, tough, durable contractor look. On the pro side, they're
Right.
definitely, softer, that they've got a lot of, it's definitely more female, but there are a lot of, males as well. But it's, definitely a little bit softer. It's more project based because they can show a project,
Okay.
like a
Yeah.
quilt that someone can follow along and make, where we can't really, we can show a project about, like how you use your knife to side a house, but yet no one's going to go out and do that as their, oh, that's a weekend project. So the tactics are a little
Right.
different. And I think the tactics are the same overall. We try to do a lot of the same things. They use social media, we use social
Okay.
media. They use print, we use print. Digital. Those type of tactics are the same, but the messaging is definitely tailored differently to their audience and what they're trying to say.
Yeah, I would imagine it is. I mean, it definitely, the hardcore pro and the crafty person are seem like almost like polar opposites, and but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's
But
it's
yeah, we've got a
interesting
nice
that
spot
you've
where
got.
we've got a really nice spot where we meet in the middle because as the pro from the contractor side, as you come into more what we call the maker space is where we kind of meet in the middle. And
Okay.
the rise of furniture making, epoxy pouring for different things. It's kind of like high end side of craft or different side of craft, the tougher side of craft, and then the different side of. So there is kind of a nice meld in the middle where we overlap. But it is very interesting how the stories are different across the board.
Yeah, yeah. Do you? I'm just curious. I mean, on the pro side, you're high quality, premium positioning. You've got a lot of equity built up in the brand on that side. Do you ever sort of reference that side of the business when you're trying to sell the craft side to use it as sort of a reason to believe why what you guys produce is so solid,
Um, I don't
in
think we necessarily
or not really?
reference. I think we reference their own history in craft. Like I said, they were the originator of the rotary cutter, and the history is almost
Right.
as long. So they reference the history that Ulfa's been around since 1956. So it's not like we're some company that
Yeah.
just popped up. But they really
Yeah.
rely on they've got a lot of their own strengths to rely on, that they know. They were the originator of the rotary cutter and then the things that came behind that, so they can really stand on their own 2 feet there. And then the quality's across the board quality. It's not like we go out high end here and do something different on the craft side. And we have the
Sure.
same
Sure.
type of testing and background to prove that an alpha blade is always, regardless of where you're using it, it's always going to be super sharp.
Yeah.
It's going to last, it's going to deliver, and be high quality.
That's great. Cool. So just a couple more questions. Actually, a few more. Do you guys use agencies at all? Outside agencies for any of the marketing work that you do? And if so, what
Yep.
what kind of things are they doing for you?
We do. We use multiple agencies because of the difference in craft and pro. So basically, I have one side on the pro side, and the craft side has another one. And we use them as an
Okay.
extension of our team. So they help us run our social media. They develop, some of our ads and things like that. It's just a reference point that we have a very small team. So it's just added, added extension of our internal team.
Got it. Got it. Do they ever support you from a strategy standpoint in terms of helping you think about the business and where it needs to go, or is it purely sort of an extra set of arms and legs to help tactically?
No, we bring them into some strategy stuff as well, just because again, they're we
Okay.
view them as an extension of our team, and they are just as involved in a lot of what they're seeing. So we bring them into brainstorm, and they might not help as much on new product development, but we relay what are you hearing from our customers and things like that. We use them for that.
Right.
Um, but
Okay.
to me, they're just an
Cool.
extension of our team. It's not. Yes, they're an outside agency, but at the end of the day, I consider them, part of my direct workforce.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, any advice you'd give to a marketer thinking about bringing a new agency on board?
Make sure that your agency understands your audience. Anyone can market
Yeah.
anything at the end of the day, but really make sure that the right fit. When we first kind of started down this whole social media platforms, we thought we could have one agency do both sides of the business, and they were so dramatically different that we found it's really better to separate that, or at least if you're going to use the same agency, almost have two separate teams, because otherwise it does get kind of hard to manage both sides of you've got these two different looks and calls to actions and everything going on. So it really
Sure.
works better to understand that. But so make sure you can understand that and know that know how to touch those customers in the right way with the right stories, and be just as passionate about it as the team that you're working with. That you should know my product just as well as I do.
Great. And then my last question is if an agency were trying to knock down your door and attempting to win business from you, what advice would you give to that agency?
A lot of the same of, you're an extension of my team, so you need to know what I'm trying to do, understand where we're trying to go, and, if you've got a better way of getting us there, great. Make sure you really understand that product line, and be just, like I said, be just as passionate about it as we are. That, we view you as an extension of our team, so you have to be just as invested as we are. But really, at the end of the day, know how we go to market. So understand that we are both U.S. and Canada, so we can't really bring in an agency that doesn't know how to work in both places. Especially because for us, our brand presence and our brand market share is completely different on each side of the border. So when you go to Canada, we're actually like the brand leader. Everybody knows Snap. They use Snap more often than it's used in the U.S. So our position is 100 degrees different than it is in Canada than it is in the U.S. And so know how to do that. That in the U.S. we're acquiring, and in Canada we're defending. And how do you meld those strategies into one strategy?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so just make
Interesting.
sure you do your
A
homework.
right. Do you get a lot of calls and emails from agencies every
um,
day?
A fairly good amount. I mean, I think it goes in cycles. It's not as much
Yeah.
agencies now. I think it's splinters of agencies. I think as the world has
Okay.
become more and more specialized, we get a lot of different things through LinkedIn, or just cold calling about all sorts of different things. And
Yeah.
sometimes it resonates because we happen to be working on a project, or you go back later and go, wait, I think I just got an email about that a week ago.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Right.
it's not on your radar, so you don't pay attention to them. But we're all marketers. We know what we got to do.
Well, that's great. Well, listen, I really appreciate you making the time today, Cassie. Some great insights. We don't talk to folks that sort of operate in this multi-layer distributor space that
Yeah.
often, and so it's really interesting, and it is certainly is has some interesting challenges. Just being able to understand how to communicate. Like you said, marketing's marketing, communicating to different audiences with different messaging and different tools. And, it's definitely not a one size fits all in your world. And that's probably what keeps it interesting and has kept you around as long as it has. So, but I do appreciate it and hope you have a great rest of the day and a great
Thanks for
weekend.
having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yep,
Thanks.
thank you.